Stones. The Energizer Bunny is exhausted watching him. And then there's McCartney, age 80, doing 3-hour shows. That revives me immediately. If those guys can do it, so can I. A side note, I don't really believe that Mick Jagger actually eats food. I mean, the guy weighs like 9 pounds. There comes a time in everyone's life when you have to stand down. As the Bible says, there is a time for every season. But as long as a person is productive, there's no compelling reason to seek the early bird special. As 81-year-old Beach Boy Mike Love continues to sing, fun, 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 till Daddy takes the T-bird away. Now this. Many timeshare owners are very upset because their yearly dues have nearly doubled. Well, Lone Star will guarantee the release of all liability to your timeshare in writing and in a specific time frame. With their A-plus rating at the Better Business Bureau, clients know that Lone Star Transfer is a company you can trust. For a free consultation, please go to LoneStarTransfer.com or call 855-551-7066. That is the Morning O'Reilly Update. More analysis later on.
No matter how clever your campaign or how hilarious your marketing messages are, you'll need a solid strategy to get the most out of your marketing dollars. At Fuse 32, we're a full-service agency with 50-plus years of media buying and planning under our branding belts. Once we establish your goals, we'll formulate a plan utilizing the proper platforms, media, and markets to bring you maximum return on your investment. Before you place your media buy, give us a try. Fuse 32. There's nothing we can't do. Fuse32.com.
Tyler always fancied himself a decent mechanic, and today he was DIY brake guy. After replacing the rotors and popping on new pads, he was set until he set out on I-70. 5 minutes down the turnpike, his car turned the tables and seized up. Turns out Tyler's handiwork wasn't so handy after all. So he called Tiger Towing, and they arrived in less time than it took Tyler to figure out he'd put his calipers on backwards. Whoops. When you can't get going, call Tiger Towing. 573-449-3754. TigerTowing.com.
News, analysis, opinion. We're 93.9 The Eagle, KSSC, Fayette, Columbia, a free service of Zimmer Communications.
Something both sides agree on. I'm Dave Anthony. Fox News has a compromise deal at the Senate on gun control legislation, which Democrats have demanded following the recent massacres at a Buffalo, New York supermarket and a Uvalde, Texas school.
A little bit of progress is always worth it. Fight for what you can get, and then come back next year for a little bit more.
Democratic Connecticut Governor Ned Lamont on ABC's This Week.
A group of 20 senators includes 10 Republicans who are reportedly working within the party to bolster support, but it could be a big ask if some of the gun laws in the framework actually make it to the final bill. This framework includes major funding to help states pass red flag laws, funding for mental health and school safety.
That's Fox's Todd Pyro. An activist group called Shut Down D.C. is planning a protest this morning starting this hour, wanting to block streets around the Supreme Court as we await the ruling that could overturn the decision that legalized abortion in favor of states' rights to restrict it. Conservative justices appeared poised to rule that way in a leaked draft opinion. The group calls those justices illegitimate. The Democrat-led House committee investigating last year's Capitol riot holds another hearing this morning with several more witnesses, including former Trump campaign chairman Bill Stepien.
The committee says its goal is to show that myths perpetuated by the former president that he won fueled the siege. In the coming days, the panel examines the pressure campaign on former Vice President Mike Pence. Plus, the committee explores possible links between Trump allies and extremists like the Proud Boys.
Fox's Chad Pergram. A father and son from Delaware go on trial today, charged with felony obstruction. Kevin and Hunter Seafried were among the first rioters to breach the Capitol that day. They have waived a jury trial, letting a judge decide, a Trump-appointed judge who's been critical of other riot prosecutions. In April, Judge Trevor McMadden acquitted a New Mexico man on disorderly conduct riot misdemeanor charges. Price of the gas pump another record high today. AAA has regular over $5.01 a gallon now. America's listening to Fox News.
Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, and Elizabeth Warren, they're all attacking America's tech innovators. The left's bill, S-2992, would take away the digital tools small businesses rely on. empower China to beat America in the race for new technologies, and increase the risk of cyber attacks. When liberals attack America's tech innovators, they're really attacking everyday Americans and Main Street businesses. American jobs, America's security, and the online privacy of the American people are all on the line. Why would Senate conservatives support this liberal agenda that threatens American innovation? We need to stop Pelosi, Schumer, Warren, and the rest of the D.C. liberals from taking away our technology and making China stronger at America's expense. Call the U.S. Senate today at 202-224-3121. Tell Senate Republicans to oppose S-2992. ProtectingTaxpayers.org, paid for and authorized by Taxpayers Protection Alliance.
93.9 The Eagle News Time with Robinson's Cleaners. It is 6:03. Robinson saves you time. Right now, we have partly sunny skies. Sun is coming up right now. It is going to be a hot one. Already 79 degrees in Columbia. Our high today will be about 99. A heat advisory will kick in at 11 o'clock this morning and go through Wednesday evening. Our overnight low will be 77 degrees. Upper 90s tomorrow, upper 90s Wednesday as well. Good morning. Here's some of the stories we are working on for you in this 6 o'clock hour. Boone County's interim prosecutor says their investigation continues into an alleged hazing incident at a Mizzou frat house that left Danny Santulli with a severe brain injury. Interim prosecutor Nick Komorowski says his office takes allegations of hazing very seriously. He adds they are terribly saddened by the injury sustained by Danny Santulli. ABC's Good Morning America aired surveillance video from October from inside the Columbia frat house. It showed blindfolded pledges being led downstairs. Again, that aired last week. The Santulli family's lawsuit says Danny was pressured to drink an entire bottle of vodka that evening. In other news at this hour, Columbia police say a woman who was shot late Saturday night on North Boulevard near the business loop suffering non-life-threatening injuries. ABC 17's Joshua Blount was on scene minutes after the shooting.
Now, police confirmed that one woman did suffer a non-life-threatening gunshot wound. Witnesses say the woman was shot in her leg. While our crews were on scene, employees at Plush Lounge told us they heard 6 shots fired.
ABC 17's Joshua Blount reporting there from just outside the business loop. CPD's investigation into the weekend shooting continues. Anyone with information should call Columbia Crime Stoppers 573-875. TIPS. Columbia School Board will hear a detailed presentation this evening about safety and security upgrades at CPS since 2018. Only CPS's community outreach unit had fobs to buildings in 2018. Today, CPS says all Columbia police officers have fob access to all buildings. That includes hard keys. The board tonight will also hear details about building access improvements of the past 4 years. All construction projects that are new include a safety design. CPS says an architect is evaluating the remaining buildings. You'll have an opportunity in late July to let state officials know what upgrades you want to see at Columbia's congested I-70-63 interchange. The opportunity will be coming your way at a late July meeting. State Department of Transportation Zach Osmond says MoDOT wants your input.
There's going to be a broader public meeting about the connector and I-70 at the end of July.
MoDOT is currently reevaluating the environmental impact statement for Columbia's I-70 corridor between Route B and Route Z. An exact date for the late July meeting hasn't been set as of yet. Speaking of MoDOT, look for nightly overnight lane closures every night this week on the I-70 Roachport Bridge. State Department of Transportation says the closures will take place nightly all week, 7 o'clock at night until 7 a.m. Workers are installing concrete barriers in the median to improve safety for workers on the bridge. For motorists as well, MoDOT broke ground on the massive $240 million bridge project in October. An investigation that began with Boone County Cybercrimes Task Force has led to 2 arrests in mid-Missouri. We'll have details on that at the bottom of the hour. In Zimmer Radio Group's mid-Missouri radio stations in Columbia and Jefferson City earned 17 awards at this weekend's MBA convention, Missouri Broadcasters Association convention. 11 first-place awards in the medium market. 93.9 The Eagle earned 2 first-place awards. We won for breaking news coverage of the Lindley Rennick verdict, and the Eagle also won for best commercial for a Brian Weir Plumbing Christmas commercial. Sports director Andy Humphrey also capturing 2 first-place awards for his work at sister station KTGR. Our news is brought to you this hour by AirServe Heating and Air Conditioning. 93.9 The Eagle News Time is 6:07. In sports, the Reds beat the Cardinals Sunday at Busch Stadium 7-6. Former Cardinal Tommy Pham hit a home run for the Reds. Reds had 2 errors. They still win, but the Cardinals take 2 of 3 in the series. They're 34-27 now. St. Louis hosting Pittsburgh tonight, Busch Stadium. First pitch, 6:45, 93.9 The Eagle. Weather should be no rain tonight if you're going to the game, but if you are heading there, even a night game, make sure you stay hydrated. It's going to be very hot tonight, almost 80 degrees in the evening. Orioles beat the Royals Sunday at Kaufman 10-7. The Royals are at San Francisco tonight to play the Giants, Oracle Park. Sports brought to you by Betts Jewelers, downtown Columbia. 93.9 The Eagle News Time, 6:07. All right, John, thank you. Weather brought to you by Club Car Wash, clubcarwash.com. Find a location near you. Partly sunny, 79. Traffic check, midmohires.com. Local companies are looking for local people, midmohires.com. It is 6:08, and roads right now are pretty quiet in mid-Missouri. Late July public hearing to get your input on I-70 and 63 in Columbia. No official date as of yet. More details from MoDOT at the bottom of the hour. I'm Brian Hauswirth, 93.9 The Eagle.
Now, I want to talk about another thing that's on everybody's mind today, and that's your stick-ups and your skyjackings, which, if that was up to me, I could end the skyjackings tomorrow. All you got to do is arm all your passengers. And then he ain't got no more superiority there, and he ain't going to dare to pull out no rod. And then your airlines, then they wouldn't have to chase the passengers on the ground no more. They just pass out the pistols at the beginning of the trip, and they pick them up again at the end. Case closed.
Archie Bunker going back to the 70s, you know, as great as that show was, he was right on. And I know it was just a TV show. Obviously, a lot of talk. Apparently, a group of bipartisan senators over the weekend, Democrats and Republicans, agreeing to at least a framework regarding a breakthrough in proposed changes to gun laws. And here's the thing. One of the senators that's in on that, Republican senators include Matthew Romney of Utah, Rob Portman of Ohio, Lindsey Graham, South Carolina, Rich Burr, North Carolina, Susan Collins. Is she really a Republican? Do we count her as a Republican anymore? She's got an R behind her name. She identifies as a Republican. She's really not. She identifies as one. John Cornyn, Texas, he is on board. And Senator Roy Blunt, our senator, outgoing senator, he's on board. And basically in this gun legislation deal, support for state crisis intervention, investment in children and family mental health services, protections for victims of domestic violence. So there's a lot of different things in there. And I don't know. And listen, I got to be honest. I'm all about the Second Amendment, and I always get concerned when people start infringing on amendments. But you start with Amendment 1. There are limitations to the First Amendment of the United States of America. There are limitations to the Second Amendment of the United States of America. I would guess most amendments, there's some kind of limitations. But, and I hate to use what's the overused, meaningless cliche, slippery slope. Once you start with something, then it steamrolls. That's the one big thing that concerns me. And then the other thing, if you start getting into these red flag laws where somebody says, hey, you're crazy, you shouldn't have a gun. I mean, that's a real thing. Until that's educated in the courts and deciding whether or not that you have the mental capacity to own a gun, That's the kind of stuff that scares me, that frightens me, because somebody else is determining your mental well-being as it relates to guns.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's more of a political move by these Republicans than anything. I think they saw the danger in getting to the midterms with no action on guns, and that might be the one issue that would motivate Democrats to get out to the polls. So I see this more as kind of a playing political defense, because it really doesn't do a lot of the things that Democrats are wanting to do. And I think they came out with like a bulleted list of, hey, here's what we want the legislation to do. I don't think the legislation is actually written yet, so I do think a lot of it will come down to the actual language in the bill. And my understanding about the red flag issue is that it will incentivize, it will like hang money out for states then to enact red flag laws. So if you live in a state like Missouri, I don't think our state would ever, the feds can offer us all the money in the world, and I just don't see the state legislature coming up with a red flag law here. But it would, in California, maybe a red flag law, they would grab the money and pass a red flag law. So I do think a lot of it would come down to the language. But again, it's kind of tinkering around the edges. But you're right. It does, I think it certainly opens the door. Which, if we have a bad year in the midterms, which I don't think we will, it does make me nervous that this many Republicans are thinking, yeah, we should do something on guns.
All it needs, I think, is a little Windex. It's window dressing. Kind of like you said, it's just kind of on the edges. It's stuff, okay, it's not that big of a deal. To your point regarding Republicans are saying, okay, here's some easy things that we can agree on. This is coming from somebody. I love to shoot guns. When I go and see my dad, I love going to the range. I don't own a gun. He's really good on this stuff, though, is Gary Nolan, 874-9390. But that's kind of the way it's kind of some window dressing. And some of these Republicans can say, yeah, okay, we can do some of this stuff. Nothing too harsh. 874-9390. Steve, welcome into the show. Welcome in. What's on your mind today?
Good morning, Branden. The red flag law issue's kind of a funny thing. I do agree with Stephanie about us here in Missouri probably not likely to see anything too wild happen. But over the years, I've read some fairly spooky cases, in other states where they've had red flag laws, and it puts a person in a situation where they're going to have possibly their property confiscated or their rights suspended based on the say-so of a disgruntled neighbor, a crazy ex-girlfriend, you name it. And then that individual gets to spend a lot of time and money defending themselves and trying to reclaim their property.
Is this too far out of line? I could see somebody, so-and-so, they've got a Trump sign in their front yard. They're crazy. Investigate them. Red flag law because they have a Trump sign in their yard.
Well, in some states, I could actually see that being acceptable grounds to, or being considered as acceptable grounds to harass somebody, legally. I just see it as a class of law that would be ripe for wild abuse.
Steve, let me ask you this: Do you own guns?
That was the wrong question. It was how many guns do you own?
Well, I guess at one time I did, but I had a terrible boating accident, as they say.
Okay. So let me ask you, as somebody who had a terrible boating accident, how does this stuff strike you and what we saw come out over the weekend? And again, it's just kind of like, hey, these are kind of things we think we agree on. There's nothing solid, nothing concrete. Because I don't own guns. I love to go shooting with my dad. Love shooting. Don't own guns. And I'm wondering how it is for somebody like you when you see this stuff. Do you kind of have that take, yeah, this is a bunch of window dressing stuff? Or do you find like, hey, this really upsets me? What is your reaction to the news over the weekend? I guess we've lost Steve. Thank you for the phone call. We do appreciate it. 874-9390.
Well, and as far as tinkering around the edges, I mean, 17 states already have red flag laws. And so I think, if someone could show us that this legislation would, encourage other people to have red flags laws, or the states with the red flag laws have fewer of these horrific, tragic, situations in their states, then I think more people will come out and support it. But it's where some of these folks already have red flag laws where we've seen people gun down people because they have mental health issues. And so that is one thing about the bill that I'm interested in seeing is there is supposed to be more funding regarding mental health in schools. It's what we know now is pretty unspecific, but it would be nice because I think everyone kind of agrees there are some mental health issues that are causing these tragedies.
And the other thing that concerns me is what if somebody's on the Cymbalta or on the Prozac or whatever the flavor of the month is for antidepressants, and somebody says, well, you're on antidepressants, you shouldn't have a gun. That's the thing that concerns me, too, is like, well, just because you're on antidepressants doesn't mean you're because it's supposed to help you. So there's a lot there. And speaking of schools, there's a lot going on. I think it's summertime. I'm forgetting about stuff in schools. There was an incredible locally viral post last week. Saw it on several of our lawmakers' pages. It was from a teacher, former Columbia Public School teacher, who quit. And she went into great detail about why she's leaving the Columbia Public School District. As a matter of fact, the CBS affiliate, Channel 13, they talked to this teacher who quit. Her name is Chris Arthur Peterson.
Teachers are not leaving the district because of pay. I didn't leave the district because of pay. I left the district because I can no longer support the policies and the procedures of Columbia Public Schools.
And it was the Facebook post. It was, wow. So much so you've got other local news media starting to pick up on this story. Mark Slavitt there from Channel 13 was talking to the teacher, Chris Arthur Peterson. But I think it's summer. There's nothing to worry about with schools. We'll wait in August, September, and then get on it again. But there are some things happening. As a matter of fact, John Potter, Como Citizens for CPS, Columbia Public School Accountability and Transparency. He's going to be joining us 8:10. There's a big meeting coming up this week at the library where we're going to be talking about some of the things that are happening in the Columbia Public School District. All that stuff a couple of years ago. And this might be a good tie-in because it's you think about what happens locally with our schools and what we have seen happen. You talk about the lawsuits, you talk about this teacher leaving, you talk about poor communication, not just with news outlets, not just with parents, not just with teachers. I'll tell you, during this campaign for school board, it was amazing to see the teachers show up at these fundraising events that were kind of quietly coming out of the woodwork. These teachers in the Columbia Public School District and kind of pulling folks aside and saying, listen, here are some things that are happening in the Columbia Public School District, and it's disturbing. And it's not just the stuff that relates to the transgender stuff and teaching this and sex education. There are things like these test scores, like, hey, you put your name on the top of the page, you pass. You get credit for that. And I'm exaggerating a little bit, but when you're a parent of a child and you're getting that little instruction in school, that can be a concern. And so you think a couple of years ago, oh, yeah, that stuff happens in schools in California and in other states. It doesn't happen here. And guess what? It happens here. That slippery slope cliche that I don't like. It could be kind of the same things when you start talking about, well, here's what we're going to do with guns. We think, oh, it's no big deal. It's just a few of these minor things. And then it steamrolls and it takes off. Fortunately, our president, Joe Biden, has he's got no credit in the bank of political acumen at all. And that's not just coming from conservatives, people in his own party. Bernie Sanders saying, in effect, Joe needs to go. So Joe Biden, here's his take on what happened over the weekend. He says this is good, but it's not enough. Well, guess who's not listening? People in his own party. By the way, coming up 6:35, Mark McCloskey, U.S. Senate candidate. Here's the big thing. Eric Greitens has been leading in the last three polls. But the biggest thing that I have noticed is It's the number of undecided voters. Mark McCloskey, he's going to be joining us 6:35 this morning here on Wake Up Columbia on 93.9 The Eagle. And coming up just a few minutes from now, Daily DC Rundown with Stephanie Bell. What do you have under the circus tent this morning, Steph?
Well, a name you might have forgotten about that's back on the national stage.
That's coming up 5 minutes from now on Wake Up.
Wake Up Columbia with Branden Rathert. Mid-Missouri is listening.
Will be committed to Georgia. And we've got to keep an eye on Russia. For Russia to have exerted such pressure in terms of invading a smaller democratic country.
Isn't that amazing? That is Sarah Palin from almost 14 years ago, and that is getting us into today's daily D.C. rundown on Wake Up Columbia on 93.9 The Eagle.
She took a lot of flack, but hey, she was right.
Yeah.
She's back on the national stage. Apparently, Alaska had a special primary on Saturday. And I think this is really interesting. So there were 48 candidates in the race, which is about the same that are in the Missouri Senate race. Honestly, there are almost 50 candidates, I think, on the ballot. And so, the question is, what percentage do you need to win when you've got this open primary? People have said, Greitens could win with, under 30%. Well, she is currently leading with 29.8%. The next closest to her is 19.3%, and then 12.5%. So if you're kind of seeing, if Greitens, Schmidt, and Hartzler split big chunks and then other people take smaller, what do you need to win? Well, in Alaska, it was only 29.8%. So we might be seeing more of her and her thoughts on Russia. I'm excited. I'm actually excited. I think she kind of got a bad rap, and I think she'd be good for Alaska.
Well, and part of that bad rap she got, there were a lot of things. Tina Fey, by the way, on SNL back in the day, her impersonation of Sarah Palin, it was good, funny stuff. Just like Alec Baldwin's impersonations of Trump. As an ardent Trump supporter, Alec Baldwin's impersonations of Trump were great. I don't care. It doesn't bother me. It's just comedy. But she was so good, Tina Fey was. A lot of things that Tina Fey said in her impersonations of Sarah Palin, remember what happened? They were attributed to Sarah Palin. People, Sarah Palin said, no. Sarah Palin didn't say that crazy stuff. Tina Fey's impersonation of Sarah Palin.
Yeah, if this means a return of Tina Fey, I'm all about it. We'll also be watching primary contests in South Carolina, Nevada, and Maine tomorrow. People are saying this is the latest test of the Trump political brand, which they say every week. Have we really learned? I mean, it's kind of been a crapshoot. I mean, some people he's endorsed have won, some people hasn't. A lot of it comes down to the candidate. So, but for the media, tomorrow is another test of Trump. We've got this bipartisan gun deal that we're watching. 10 senators, Republican senators have said they're in favor of it, but we're still waiting for the actual text to decide what we think about it.
As a matter of fact, Mark McCloskey, his story, and not only is he running for Senate, but the now famous event in St. Louis a couple of years ago, he's going to be joining us 5 minutes from now. The number of undecided voters in the 2022 U.S. Senate race. We'll talk about that. Additionally, what he thinks about this framework of gun legislation in D.C. I have your ABC 17 storm track forecast. Heat advisory goes into effect later today, last through Wednesday. Sunshine today, high 99. It's already 81 degrees. Stop by Club Car Wash. Get an unlimited membership, $20 a month. You can get more details, clubcarwash.com.
Fox News, I'm Chris Foster. President Biden says gun legislation negotiated in the Senate doesn't do everything he thinks is needed, but reflects important steps in the right direction.
This framework includes major funding to help states pass red flag laws, funding for mental health and school safety, closing the boyfriend loophole, federal laws against gun trafficking and straw purchases, and more clarification on laws about who is considered a licensed gun dealer.
Fox's Todd Pyra, the boyfriend loophole is about taking guns away from abusive dating partners. 31 people arrested near a gay pride event in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, our police say. Members of the Patriot Front white supremacist group from at least 11 states.
They were each charged with conspiracy to riot. Officers say a concerned citizen called police after they saw the group loading into a U-Haul truck, alerting officers to the situation.
Fox's Christina Coleman. There are evacuations in northern Arizona because of a wildfire that was spotted yesterday morning. America's listening to Fox News.
And now award-winning local news coverage with Brian Hauswirth on 93.9 The Eagle.
93.9 The Eagle News Time with Robinson's Cleaners. It is 6:31. Robinson saves you time. It is warming up. Hot morning already. Sunny, 80 in Columbia. It's 81 degrees already in Jefferson City. A heat advisory kicks in at 11 o'clock this morning, goes through Wednesday evening. Good morning. I'm Brian Hauswirth. And invest